They say justice wears a blindfold, but that day, she wore a noose. It happened in a courtroom that smelled like old sweat, furniture polish, and power, the kind of place where the air itself judges you, the kind of courtroom where the truth never stood a damn chance. The gavel came down hard, like a hammer to the throat, and just like that, silence. Every breath got caught in people's lungs. Every eye turned to the woman standing alone at the defendant's table. A black woman, tall, poised, unapologetically calm. Her name? Camille Monroe. But most folks in that room didn't care about her name. They just saw her skin. She didn't shake, didn't blink, didn't even fidget. Just stood there like the ground belonged to her. And that's what pissed Judge Barton Calloway off the most. Now Calloway, he wasn't just a judge, he was a legacy. His granddaddy had been a judge, his daddy too. That bench wasn't earned. It was inherited, like a family gun or an ugly opinion. He looked down at Camille like she was dirt on his boots. His pale blue eyes narrowed, lips curling like he'd smelled something foul. "You think this is your place?" he growled, low and deliberate, voice slithering through the room like a snake. "You think because you got a mouth, you get to use it? You think that voice of yours matters in my courtroom?" Camille didn't flinch, didn't speak, just watched him. That silence, it was louder than anything she could have said, and that burned him. The jury, 12 blank white faces, just stared, like mannequins in discount suits. The bailiff shifted his weight, leather creaking. The stenographer typed, robotically, like nothing unusual was happening. No one stopped it. No one ever did. See, this courtroom wasn't built for justice. It was a machine, well-oiled, polite, and brutal. And today, it was gunning for Camille. Let me back up a sec. Camille Monroe wasn't just some defendant who stumbled into the wrong courtroom. She was the former deputy chief of military intelligence, served 16 years in uniform, fought in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, graduated top of her class at Quantico, trained in psychological warfare, fluent in 4 languages, and built from the kind of grit that most men couldn't stomach. But before all that, before the medals and the classified files, Camille was just a kid from a red-line neighborhood in Baton Rouge. Her father worked 2 jobs. Her mother died when she was 9. At 16, she watched her cousin get beaten half to death by cops who never even lost their jobs. That night, she made a decision. Never again would she be powerless. She joined the army not for glory, but for knowledge. Power. She trained like a beast, broke bones, broke records, woke up at 4 a.m. every day for a decade, learned how to endure pain, betrayal, heat, and hierarchy. And most of all, she learned how systems work, how to build them, and how to burn them down. So when Judge Calloway sneered and said, "Guilty," before even letting her speak, he didn't realize what storm he'd just summoned. They cuffed her, humiliated her, cameras off, media barred, case sealed. Just another black woman buried under the system, right? Wrong. 3 weeks later, Judge Calloway came into his chambers like any other day. But this time, Camille was waiting. Same posture, same quiet fire in her eyes. But this time, she wasn't wearing handcuffs. She wore the robe. She was the newly appointed Chief Justice of the United States. The appointment had been sealed, confidential, pending a private ethics probe into corrupt judges nationwide. Camille had gone undercover, and Calloway? He'd just become Exhibit A. She didn't yell, didn't gloat. She just placed a flash drive on his desk and said softly, "Everything is on here. Every case you rigged, every lie you signed off on, every life you ruined." Calloway's face went gray, his fingers twitched, his jaw clenched. "You don't know what you're doing," he hissed. Camille tilted her head, calm as a sniper. "On the contrary, I know exactly what I'm doing." The next 48 hours, chaos. The FBI raided Calloway's home. The DOJ launched a formal inquiry. 27 of his past cases were reopened. CNN ran back-to-back coverage. Hashtags exploded online. Hashtag Justice for Camille, Black Robe Revenge, Calloway Files. Police departments scrambled to release statements. The Louisiana Bar Association suspended 6 attorneys overnight. Protesters flooded the steps of the courthouse where Camille had once stood in silence, now chanting her name. But not everyone was cheering. Fox News ran a segment calling her a vengeful militant. The governor called for calm and due process. A thin blue line group doxed her home address. Even inside the courthouse, cracks appeared. Assistant DA Rachel Morelli resigned live on air, revealing that she had been forced to prosecute Camille despite having doubts. "I knew it was wrong," she said through tears, "but I stayed quiet because I was afraid." Then came the internal hearing, broadcast live. Callaway, in shackles, tried to spin the narrative. "She entrapped me," he claimed. "This was a political stunt." Camille stood and replied, "If truth is a trap, maybe you should stop running from it." Mic dropped. But you know what? The hardest part wasn't the trial, or the headlines, or the threats. It was the decision Camille had to make the night before she exposed him. Because she could have walked away. She almost did. In a moment of vulnerability, she confided in her friend, Detective Ron Bishop, one of the few good cops left in town. He'd been on her side since the military, quietly sending her intel, protecting her identity. But he warned her, "If you do this, they'll come for you too. Your past, your family, your peace." She sat with that, all night, because vengeance is easy. Justice? That's the hard road. And Camille wasn't chasing revenge. She was building a reckoning. 3 days later, Ron Bishop was suspended, then reassigned. Then, his house was vandalized. Brick through the window, dog poisoned. The message was clear: stay silent. Camille offered to speak out for him. He smiled and said, "You already did." That's when she knew. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every student who gets accused before they speak, every mom who gets pulled over for fitting a description, every black soldier who gets saluted overseas and doubted at home. The backlash came hard. Camille was followed, her email hacked, her military record leaked. Talk show pundits called her a divisive figure. One morning, she found a bullet casing on her porch. That night, she stood in front of a CNN camera and said, "I won't hide. I won't stop. You want silence? You came to the wrong woman." And America listened. Colleges invited her to speak. High schools painted murals. The NAACP awarded her their highest civilian honor. A street in Baton Rouge now bears her name. But not all victories feel like celebrations. In her apartment, 2 floors above the noise, Camille sits alone most nights. No husband, no kids, just her and a world that finally knows her name and expects her to fix what they ignored. Sometimes she wonders if it was worth it. Then she remembers that courtroom, that gavel, that silence. And she knows. She made the silence speak. Now here's the part that'll stick with you. 6 months later, Judge Callaway's appeal was denied. He's serving 35 years in federal prison. Camille? She's still Chief Justice. But she doesn't sit on the bench much. No, she's out there, in communities, schools, town halls. Every month she hosts an open hearing in public parks. Real people, real voices. And every time she steps up to that portable mic and says, "Who needs to be heard today?" the line wraps around the block. And yet, there's one scene that people don't know about, the one the news never aired. It was dusk, the courthouse empty. Camille stood alone in front of that same bench where Callaway once sentenced her. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the original verdict he gave her. Guilty. She stared at it, then struck a match. The paper curled, turned to ash. But before the flame touched her fingers, she whispered, "Not anymore." Now tell me this. Was she right to destroy him? Or did she become the very thing she fought? Would you have forgiven? Let us know in the comments below. And if justice means more to you than comfort, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to remember. Power isn't what you hold, it's what you refuse to surrender.